Wallace, how are
Assalamu
you?
alaikum and welcome. This is the only way up. Before we begin, remember to like, share, and subscribe. And today's topic is Gregg Wallace, the former presenter of MasterChef, who's been on the TV screens for over 10 years. He's been accused of sexual harassment, inappropriate behavior whilst on TV sets, whilst on recording for MasterChef. Uh, what do you want to say about this?
So, Shani, I think there's definitely a problem at the BBC. You've had Philip Schofield, you had Jimmy Savile back in the day, and now you've got Greg Wallace. So, there's definitely a problem there. And if this problem was isolated to a media channel, then you could say there's something quite unique going on here. But the accusations against Greg Wallace, how he behaved, what he said, these are really reflective of wider society. If you look at in the office, if you look at in the sports stadiums, if you look at even in Parliament, there is a culture of laddism. There's been surveys on this. There is a culture of viewing women in a certain way only. And as a result, that leads to a certain type of behavior. So coming onto a woman, uh, saying double meaning dialogues, there was a time where this was perfectly normal and a woman was expected to take it. Now, obviously, many individuals took this too far and it led to all sorts of gruesome outcomes. And we live in a world today because of Harvey Weinstein, because of the whole Me Too movement, where a lot of women just aren't taking this. And this makes me laugh because with all the discussion about immigration, you heard this argument that these immigrants are different. They're from a society which has different values. You know, they say we value women and these guys don't. And however, the Western world, it's full of mistreatment of women. Survey after survey. We have a court case going on in France at the moment that we previously discussed, of where a guy's invited everyone he knows from his town to come and sexually abuse his wife. Now, that's not in Syria, in Afghanistan, in Libya, which is war torn. This is in France, where there isn't actually a war going on. So, really, for me, Shani, this is really reflective of wider society. And for a long time, men were allowed to get away with this, and a woman was told to man up. This is how it is. And now you're seeing women fight back, and it really shows you that there's a social problem here. What is the role of men and women? What role should they play that creates a cohesive society? And for such a long time, what we've heard is leave men and women to it, and they will decide themselves. And we leave men to it, you see what's happened, and you leave women to it, you see what happens. They talk about wanting certain rights, or wanting things in a way which were not available to them in the past. So for me, Shani, this Greg Wallace issue just really shows us where Western society really is. Despite all the claim about immigrants and people from other parts of the world, there are some serious issues
Yeah, and I think, like you
Westerners
said,
really need to look at.
there's a big discussion going on out there. Where's the line? How do you draw the line? What can be said? What can't be said? Is saying this in this context harassment, and in another context is just banter. What can be said? What can't be said no more? It's become a minefield of how do you legislate? How do you draw the line? Where do you go from here? And it's causing a lot of issues in this whole debate. And I think the real issue isn't about freedom of speech or what can you say, what can't you say. Rather, what is the motivation to say, to speak, to make a comment? And the motivation, modesty has gone out the window. Being modest, having haya in your approach, whether you're a man or a woman, has gone out the window. That is not a measure no more. That's not an aspiration. That's not a value people seek, and that's not a value that's embedded within in people. Rather, the value is, what do I like? Do I like this or don't I like this? And then cannot say this. And I think the mindset of I like this, I want to say something, I want to get some sort of interaction going to lead to something intimate, constantly in the mind, constantly as the normal way of being with a man and a woman or between a man and a woman. Excuse me, this has become the normal mindset. And I think that is what's killing a lot of these issues and putting women through all this very bad situations. It's the mindset, and the mindset that needs to be embedded is the mindset of modesty, of here. Like in Islam, the Prophet ﷺ said, "There's many branches of iman, your belief, and modesty is one of them." So, and I think once until that modesty isn't in the person, in who they are, and how they interact, then you can legislate, you can draw the line, you can, slice it and dice it in any way. There'll always be a loophole. There'll always be an NDA. There'll always be, or this was consented. There'll always be some sort of way around this because they'll find a way. So until the mindset doesn't change of modesty, so when Yusuf al-Islam, he felt that he may be vulnerable to act in that way. He said, I'd rather go to jail. I'd rather be out of this whole situation where I may even fall into it, send me to jail instead. And I think until that mindset's not changed, you're going to always have these problems.
Yes, absolutely. I think in the West, Shani, you've got this huge debate and issue going on the social aspect, the role of men and women, rights and responsibilities, and this is the side of the world that's been exporting this to other countries, invading other countries, and they've got these serious issues at home. And I think you've got a number of aspects to this. You've got one, which is some core issues, men and women, how they interact. Then you've got beyond that, which is, you could argue is ethics or morals, or just generally how you treat a person. You treat them with kindness, you treat them with respect, and this is irrespective of what your particular beliefs are. And you can see at all levels, this is all messed up. It's messed up at a more ideological level on the role of men and women. And then when you just got generally, you work with someone, you have a business partner, you have a client, you're on public transport. What you find is all of this has just become so blurred that women aren't safe in the Western world to be traveling. It's winter now in the West. It's not safe for them to be travel out in the evening. You find in the workplace, women complain again and again and again that they are judged upon their looks and their body rather than their actual skills and their actual capabilities. So this is actually a real big issue, and really, all of, because these issues are so widespread, it leads to the more extreme examples of what we've seen in France, and in these cases, or you've got the Harvey Weinstein type characters. So, they can say what they want about the Taliban. Afghanistan doesn't suffer from these issues, and it's all even been involved in wars. So there's some serious issues here they've got to really deal with. And really, I can't see this issue disappearing. If they think more liberalization and more freedom is a solution to it, well, you've had that for century plus. It hasn't really actually helped. So I'm not sure how they're going to solve it, but what it shows you is no amount of GDP growth, no amount of technology, no amount of industrial development can solve this social issue. You can have the best skyscrapers, you can have more wealth, but if your people don't feel safe, if your people don't feel valued, if one gender feels the other gender looks down upon them, you've got a massive problem here. And whilst materially the West may have developed a lot, on the social side, they've got loads of issues. And all of this is encapsulated with the fact that they're in demographic decline. You look at Germany, you look at Russia, you look at Japan. These countries are all in demographic decline. So the social issues are very, very deep. And that's why this Gregg Wallace issue is really representative of a much
Yeah, I
deeper
think
and broader
definitely
issue.
is broader and multifactorial, and it feeds into this type of behavior. I think one of the aspects that feeds into it is these values of marriage, of loyalty to a marriage, of relationships within the bounds of marriage has really deteriorated. Though there is it's in the vows, those there it's even in the legislation, it's in an understanding of what a marriage is, in terms of aspiring for it, in terms of realizing to achieve this, I have to keep myself away from situations where I may say something inappropriate, keep myself away from situations where I may feel like I may become vulnerable, I may do something, I may slip up. Rather, it's a case of, yeah, if marriage is there, I'm going to do my own thing. It's still in the background, and this dilution of the idea of the marriage, the seeking of the marriage, the wanting to keep the marriage alive, to keep it going, being loyal to the fabric of marriage is diluted and lost so much of its strength that it's just very, very common to hear of affairs, of flirtation, of sexting, of all sorts of situations like this. And amongst that as well is obviously inappropriate in terms of what's legally recognized here, in terms of statements and comments. It flows into that. So I think there's multifactorial factors that are fed into this, and until these values of modesty, marriage, relationship within the bounds of marriage, uh, is not in people's hearts and minds deeply, it's always going to slip into these areas where comments, inappropriate behavior can happen and will happen. I'm sure this will not be the last time we talk about this, but jazakallah khair for listening, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.